There are moments in boxing when time seems to slow, when every heartbeat inside an arena pounds in rhythm with the fighter's will. In May of 2019, one of those moments belonged to Naoya Inoue. The Japanese Phenom, already feared as the monster, stepped through the ropes not just to defend his reputation but to reclaim something far more personal. Across from him stood the undefeated Puerto Rican champion, Emanuel Rodriguez, in the semifinal of the World Boxing Super Series. The IBF Bantamweight title was on the line, but for Inoue, this was more than a championship fight. It was revenge. Days before the bout, tensions had flared. In a shocking act of disrespect, Rodriguez's coach shoved Inoue's father during a press event. The gesture, small in movement but heavy in meaning, crossed a sacred line. Inoue, a man of quiet fury and disciplined restraint, took it personally. When he entered the ring that night, it wasn't just business. It was blood. It was pride. It was a reckoning. Rodriguez entered the ring undefeated, polished, and confident. A product of Puerto Rico's rich boxing tradition, he was technically sharp, fleet-footed, and known for his defensive intelligence. He carried the poise of a man who had never tasted defeat and believed he wouldn't start tonight. From the opening bell, he boxed beautifully. His jab was crisp, his movement smooth, and his eyes sharp. For the first 3 minutes, he looked like the man who might finally test the myth of the monster. The first round was chess, not chaos, two masters calculating danger, feinting, probing, and testing each other's rhythm. The Puerto Rican champion even won some exchanges, landing jabs and quick counters that drew murmurs from the crowd. Maybe, just maybe, this would be competitive. But legends are written in seconds, not rounds. Less than half a minute into the second round, the tone shifted. Inoue's movements became more compact, his eyes cold and exact. He stepped forward with predatory calm, slipping a jab, and unleashed a short left hook that detonated on Rodriguez's chin like a grenade. The Puerto Rican dropped hard, his body folding as the shock rippled through him. The crowd gasped, the sound hanging in the air like an echo of inevitability. Rodriguez beat the count, eyes glassy but defiant, unaware that he had already crossed into the monster's realm. Inoue didn't pause. He closed in with machine-like precision, delivering a brutal body shot that sent Rodriguez crashing down again. The sound of the punch was sharp and final, the kind of shot that rearranges a fighter's career. Blood streamed from Rodriguez's nose, his corner screamed instructions drowned by the roars of the crowd, and yet, somehow, the champion rose again. But Inoue was merciless. A right hand followed by another body shot folded Rodriguez for the third time. The referee had seen enough. In 2 rounds, Inoue had reduced an undefeated world champion to rubble. That night, the monster wasn't just victorious, he was terrifying. His fists spoke louder than words. His power transcended weight classes, his precision defied logic, and his composure under pressure marked him as something beyond ordinary. The victory unified titles, but more importantly, it unified belief that Naoya Inoue wasn't just Japan's best. He was boxing's future. The World Boxing Super Series final was set, and across the bracket stood a legend, Nonito Donaire. The Filipino Flash, a former multi-division champion, carried the aura of an era past but not forgotten. He was a man whose left hook had ended dreams, whose experience spanned decades, and whose heart had never once retreated. To the public, he was the underdog. To Inoue, he was the final test, the kind of opponent who doesn't fall to fear, who refuses to be erased. In November 2019, in Saitama, Japan, the ring glowed under white lights and camera flashes as the two fighters locked eyes. Donaire stared into Inoue's soul with the composure of a man who had seen every storm. Inoue, silent and focused, saw not just an opponent but a mirror, the reflection of what a warrior could become. The bell rang, and the monster advanced. Inoue began fast, pressing forward behind a snapping jab and surgical combinations. Donaire, calm as ever, adjusted, pivoted, and countered. Every punch echoed like a drumbeat in a cathedral. The Japanese prodigy's hands were blurs of motion, but the Filipino veteran's timing was exquisite. For 2 rounds, they traded precision and power in equal measure. Then, in the second round, the unthinkable happened. Donaire found a window, a single heartbeat of vulnerability, and launched his signature left hook. It landed flush, cracking Inoue's right eye socket. Blood began to swell around the wound, and for the first time, the monster bled. The crowd gasped. Inoue blinked, wiped the blood away, and smiled, not out of arrogance, but out of defiance. The pain only sharpened his focus. Donaire, smelling opportunity, pressed forward with renewed vigor, landing clean right hands and sharp counters. The veteran was crafting a masterpiece, teaching lessons in timing and grit. The third and fourth rounds belonged to him, his experience turning the young champion's aggression against him. For a fleeting moment, it seemed the legend might humble the monster. But true greatness reveals itself in crisis. Inoue recalibrated. His footwork became tighter, his combinations shorter, and his timing sharper. He went back to basics, jabs, feints, and angles. The fifth round saw him reassert control, landing a series of heavy hooks that rocked Donaire. The younger man's power began to shift the tide. The monster was awake again. Yet Donaire, ever the warrior, refused to yield. Even as he absorbed punishing shots, he answered with counters that demanded respect. His chin, forged through decades of wars, held firm. Every round turned into a cinematic exchange, youth versus experience, speed versus wisdom, precision versus heart. The fight evolved beyond tactics. It became spiritual, a test of human limits. By the 8th round, both men were marked, Inoue's eye swollen and bleeding, Donaire's face battered and bruised. Still, they pressed forward, neither willing to step back. The 9th and 10th rounds were chaos disguised as beauty. Inoue's combinations were lightning, yet Donaire's counters remained dangerous. Each fighter landed shots that would have ended most bouts. The crowd stood, sensing history. By the 11th, exhaustion painted their movements, but neither man broke. Then, Inoue found the moment. A perfectly timed left hook to the liver, the kind of punch that ends fights silently, landed flush. Donaire's body crumpled. He fell to one knee, his face contorted in pain, the crowd roaring in disbelief. It was a punch that could finish anyone. But Donaire refused to stay down. He rose, defying logic, defying biology. The arena erupted in awe. When the final bell rang, both men embraced, drenched in sweat and blood, the crowd roaring not for a winner, but for what they had witnessed. Inoue was declared the victor, unifying titles and claiming the World Boxing Super Series crown. But both fighters had earned immortality. Their battle transcended sport. It became legend. That night, Inoue proved he could endure fire and triumph. Donaire proved that even against monsters, heart could make a man immortal. Their fight was hailed as one of the greatest of the modern era, a perfect storm of power, precision, and human spirit. Years passed, but their names remained linked. Inoue continued his reign of destruction, dismantling every challenger with frightening ease. Donaire, defiant of time, rebuilt himself once more, claiming another world title. Their paths, as if guided by fate, converged again in 2022. The stage was set for a rematch, this time for the WBA, IBF, and WBC Bantamweight titles. Fans expected another war, another 12-round classic of mutual punishment and respect. But Inoue had evolved. He wasn't coming to survive a test. He was coming to end it. Under the bright lights of the Saitama Super Arena once again, the air was thick with anticipation. The two men, older now but still dangerous, met at center ring. Donaire's expression was composed, proud, and defiant. Inoue's was calm, the stillness before a storm. The opening bell rang, and instantly, the difference was clear. Inoue's jab was faster, sharper, and heavier. Each punch landed with mechanical precision, snapping Donaire's head back. The Filipino legend tried to establish rhythm, but Inoue was already dictating pace and distance. The monster had become something even more terrifying, a perfect blend of power, speed, and cold calculation. Midway through the first round, Inoue's right hand found home. A thunderous straight shot crashed into Donaire's jaw, sending him reeling toward the ropes. The crowd gasped, memories of their first war flashing in everyone's minds. But this time, there would be no drawn-out struggle, no back-and-forth symphony of endurance. Inoue pressed forward, relentless, landing combinations with clinical accuracy. The bell saved Donaire at the end of the round, but his eyes betrayed what his pride refused to admit. The monster had transcended. The second round began with Inoue stalking behind his jab, cutting off angles, and hurting his prey. Donaire, valiant as ever, tried to counter, launching his famous left hook. Inoue saw it, slipped inside, and unleashed a blistering 1-2 that froze Donaire in place. Then came the finishing blow, a monstrous right hand that sent the Filipino legend crashing to the canvas. The crowd exploded, but Inoue wasn't done. Donaire, driven by pride, beat the count, his legs unsteady. Inoue advanced, eyes locked, fists coiled. A savage left hook landed, followed by a flurry that ended with another right hand. Donaire fell again, and this time, the referee waved it off. It was over. In just 2 rounds, the monster had completed his masterpiece. The rematch was not a war, it was a coronation. Inoue had evolved from prodigy to master, from sensation to legend. The same opponent who once pushed him to his limits now stood as a testament to how far he had risen. As the referee raised his hand, the crowd chanted his name, Naoya Inoue, the embodiment of power, precision, and discipline. Donaire, ever the gentleman and warrior, embraced him once more. There was no bitterness, only mutual respect. 2 eras shook hands, one passing the torch, the other blazing toward immortality. Inoue's journey through those 3 fights was more than a sequence of victories. It was the story of transformation. Against Rodriguez, he revealed his fury, the cold efficiency of a man wronged, unleashing punishment with surgical rage. Against Donaire in 2019, he found humility and resilience, proof that even monsters bleed, but the true ones rise stronger. And against Donaire again in 2022, he showcased evolution, not just in skill, but in spirit. He had become something untouchable, a fighter who could adapt, destroy, and transcend expectation. Each opponent brought a different side of him to life. Rodriguez forced him to confront disrespect with dominance. Donaire forced him to confront pain with perseverance. Together, they forged the legend. From the respectful young man who fought for his father's honor to the composed destroyer who dismantled a legend, Inoue's arc was complete. His fists had written a trilogy, not in ink, but in impact. Boxing has seen many greats, Ali's impact. Poetry, Tyson's fury, Pacquiao's dynamism, Mayweather's mastery, but Inoue carved a path uniquely his own. His style was contradiction made art, a silent storm, a man whose violence was beautiful because it was pure. No wasted motion, no false bravado, just perfect execution. Every punch thrown with intention, every victory earned with restraint. The monster wasn't merely about power. He was about precision, patience, and poise. As the crowd in Saitama cheered his name after the rematch, it wasn't just Japan celebrating. The entire boxing world recognized that they were witnessing greatness in real time. Inoue had unified the division, captured every major title, and done so without compromise. He stood at the pinnacle, not through theatrics, but through undeniable performance. And yet, what made him special wasn't just his destruction. It was his respect, for his opponents, for the craft, for the lineage of the sport itself. Rodriguez had learned that to disrespect an Inoue was to invite ruin. Donaire had reminded the world that even when you lose, you can win everlasting respect. Together, they created moments that defined a generation of boxing, from the shocking demolition in Glasgow to the 12-round war in Saitama, and finally, the swift coronation that followed. These fights were more than athletic contests. They were parables of will, pride, and redemption. Inoue's story continues, but these 3 nights stand as chapters of transformation, vengeance, endurance, and ascension. In the eyes of fans, he became something beyond a fighter, a symbol of controlled fury, of artistry forged in combat. Every time he steps into the ring, the world holds its breath, waiting to see how the monster will move, strike, and evolve again. In boxing, true legends don't just win. They define eras. Naoya Inoue did that before his 30th birthday. And as the lights dimmed in the arena after his victory over Donaire in their rematch, there was a sense of finality, not of an ending, but of a beginning. The monster had conquered the past, mastered the present, and set his eyes on the future. Somewhere beyond the applause, beyond the belts and the blood, stood the truth of his journey, that greatness isn't built on fearlessness alone, but on the courage to face pain, learn from it, and return sharper than ever. For Inoue, the line between man and monster blurred long ago. What remained was a fighter whose very existence redefined what it means to dominate, not through rage, but through perfection.